uh, morning to all our viewers today. Good evening to people from other parts of the world. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a very exceptional woman leader who has been awarded so many awards on she has been 40 under 40 by the Marshall's Memorial Fellowship. She has been named as the leader of the year by California Association of Wine Grape Growers. She has been the North Bay Business Journal Women in Business Awards. She has led the world, I would say, towards sustainable winery. She is leading Sonoma County's wine leadership. She has been in this space for more than 2 decades. Doesn't look like at all. And she has worked with General Mills, Mattel, Universal Studio, and an academic foundation at Wharton Institution. Let us all welcome Carissa Cruz, CEO and President, Sonoma County Wine Growers.
Well, now that I don't know how I follow all that up, it makes me kind of blush. So thank you. That was a very kind introduction.
Thank you for joining us. We would like to know more about your journey. What excited you and what inspired you to make Sonoma County wine growers towards an ambition of 100% sustainable vineyards?
Sure, I would love to take the credit, but it goes to a really dynamic board member I have, Jeff Bevel, who literally posed a question when I was very early on in running the organization around how do Sonoma County wine growers really take a leadership role in sustainability? And it kind of just inspired, honestly, about 6 months of conversation with our board of directors and kind of a really deep recognition that if you want to take a leadership role, there's no shortcut. You actually have to become leaders in what you're setting out to do. Seems very simple in retrospect, but at the time was kind of an aha moment. And so our board of directors, I have 20 grape growers, farmers on my board said, you know what, this is committing to being certified sustainable in our vineyards is good for our business, it's good for our community, it's good for our workforce. And let's put a goal of trying to make that happen and doing it over, a five plus year horizon. And so they voted unanimously to take on this kind of ambitious wine region wide goal, and off we went back in 2014 is when we established that goal.
Wow, that's highly commendable, and especially when the entire community comes together towards the same mission.
Yeah.
Now, the wine industry is very much dependent on climate stability. How are the rising temperatures, drought, extreme weather events reshaping vineyard management and grape cultivation in Sonoma County?
Yeah, it's so interesting when we talk about climate change in regards to farming and agriculture because our farmers, quite honestly, every year Mother Nature gives them some twist, whether it's more rain than expected, warmer temperatures, flooding, you name it, it happens. And so, they're always responding to Mother Nature. So I think what we're seeing is when we think about climate change, those incidences of irregularity are coming faster and more often. And so what maybe would be, a drought season that we'd get once every 10, 20 years. It might be a drought for 2 years and then, unseasonably rainfall, for 2 years and then right back to drought. So they're having to really figure out how to be responsive more quickly, more proactive about it. And what they're doing is really learning from each other. We're very blessed in Sonoma County. We have 19 different kind of microclimates and growing regions, different soils. And so we already have planted here over 106 different grape varieties kind of across the county and region. And so we're able to have our farmers really looking at, okay, if you're in a cooler part of Sonoma County, what grapes do well? How do you farm those versus in a warmer area? And so we're already sharing kind of those best practices and looking at each other and our community to kind of learn from each other. So lots of conversations about what should be planted where and how you respond. And we're also something we'll talk about starting to think about more technology and data-driven decisions to help us respond quicker.
That's very interesting. Do y'all have some website or something wherein y'all are sharing this for global farmers also who are not in
Yeah.
Sonoma County?
Yeah, no, we love to share. I mean, I think that's the best thing about farming is that there's really, I hate to say this, but like no competitive advantage to being a better farmer than your neighbor. Like disease and weather doesn't stay isolated on one person's property. And so, the better someone, the more conservation and resource, utilization and efficient resource utilization you can do, the better everyone is. And so we are actually in the process of writing several case studies or kind of, just white papers on some of the projects and programs. But go to sonomawinegrape.org and kind of follow along. And we definitely write a lot about it and host conversations and webinars. So we'd invite anyone to, leverage some of the learnings we've had.
That would be such a learning for all the farmers across the globe.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing what you're doing. Now, sustainability in wine is often misunderstood just as organic farming. So could you explain in a broader framework what is sustainability in viticulture?
Yeah, sustainability is one of those very interesting terms because it can mean so many different things. For us in Sonoma County and our vineyards, it was really taking a triple bottom line approach to our entire business. So it's not just the materials you use, the water you use, but electricity, it's how you engage in the community. It's about workforce development and support. And then also about ensuring, and I love this, and I think when we first met, I said this like from our farmers, economically, you can't go green if you're in the red. And that was something I heard a great leader in sustainability say a few years back. And it just made so much sense that, our growers have to understand where they invest and how they are efficient with their use of their financial resources so they can stay viable as well. And so as part of our sustainability commitment, most of our growers follow kind of a set of best practice, or all of our growers follow a set of best practices. There's a couple different programs they can sort of opt into, but they all holistically look at the business and then also require a third party sort of audit or certification to be considered certified sustainable in Sonoma County. And what I think is most interesting is, thinking about the people piece, because I think that sometimes maybe can be an afterthought. And for us, it's really, I would say, the driver, where our vineyards here are 97% family owned. And so these multi-generational families are really thinking about the decisions they're doing to ensure the next generation can still have, healthy soils and beautiful landscape that supports the family business. And so we actually reinvigorated a foundation that we support that does a lot of sort of workforce development and has a leadership academy for our vineyard employees, kind of recognizing that these individual, businesses can't really take on those system-wide, opportunities or approaches on their own, that we need to do it as a community. And so we have found, as we see an opportunity to do more or support the community more, then we go and create programs or education around it.
Yeah, that's very interesting way to go about it. And defining what would it mean like for sustainability in vineyards. Now, Sonoma County is one of the first regions in the world to certify all its vineyards as sustainable. Now, what are the biggest challenges in mobilizing hundreds of growers to align with the common goal?
Yeah, that is, I get asked that a lot because I think first I give so much credit to our local grape growing community. They are just amazing men and women. And so this was something that they didn't all say yes right away. It did take us a couple of years. And I will say, to some extent, it's like when you're trying anything that's big and bold, that takes kind of an adoption process, right? You start and part of I would say our secret sauce is that we started with our board of directors. I mentioned 20 really amazing farming families from across our whole region. And when they committed at the board to making this commitment, they knew they had to step up and be the leaders in this commitment. So they were some of the first kind of early adopters of really going through the certification program. And then, starting to tell their neighbors about it. And I think one of the things that really benefited us, which was not the original idea, originally we were going to say, let's go after 90% certified sustainable and let's do it in a shorter time period. But by kind of putting out there this ambitious goal of 100%, everyone kind of realized like they have to opt in. They can't be left behind. Where I think if you do something like 90% or 80%, everyone thinks they can be the 10% that maybe doesn't have to do it. And pretty soon you don't make much progress. So that idea of like we're all going to do this kind of brought everyone along. But we did a lot of different things. I used to laugh about this. I asked farmers what motivates growers to do something, and they joke, they like ball caps and bumper stickers. So they want to be able to showcase that they're a part of something. So we did one, I would say one better. We actually created a Sonoma County sustainability sign that you could actually proudly display at your vineyard or at the entrance to your vineyard. So as you drive around Sonoma County now, you'll see, over probably almost 2,000 of those signs out in our community, just showcasing that, we're part of following this commitment together. And then, some folks waited till the end because they were like, all right, when we get close to that 90%, then we'll do it, along with everyone else. But I think what was happening is the farmers really realized that there was so much benefit. They were learning something, along the way. And one of our growers said it was like getting a PhD in his vineyard. Because, typically, like we said in the first question with climate, or second question with climate, farmers are responding to Mother Nature. Sustainability certification in the program really helped them look at all of their practices holistically, kind of at the same time, and said, oh, well, if I change this one thing here, that will actually ladder up to something here later on in kind of the year or the season. And so they started to think about that. And the other tenet of the sustainability program was continuous improvement. And so for them, it's also provided this opportunity to learn from each other, like, and think about, is it time to invest in solar? Is it time to invest in going, electric and with our vehicles? Is it time to invest in housing for our employees? So it kind of really, I would say, really created a great way to big picture, do long-term planning with these sort of short-term goals. So all of that was coming together. And so I think our community started to really learn from each other and see real value, which is at the end of the day, it's not worth doing something just to say you're doing it. What needs to happen is there needs to be a real value in what you're doing. And our growers were learning that being sustainable and going through these programs, being certified every year, was providing a real business value, a real value back to the community, something they could be incredibly proud of, and a value back to their sort of sustainability and thrivability, longevity of their business.
Maybe you all may want to consider to start a program on PhD in sustainable vineyards.
I know, right? I know it was so fun to see the evolution too, Harsha. Like in the beginning, I'm like, okay, let's do this. I felt like a little bit like a sustainability, cheerleader of sorts, like, let's go, let's go. And as we started to see kind of progress and momentum was building, pretty soon like the farming community owned the initiative and owned the effort. And we're like, I'm going to talk to my neighbor and I want to host a lunch and learn. So folks that haven't opted into like doing the program yet can really understand why it matters to me and what I'm learning. And so it was just amazing to watch again, kind of, that adoption curve happen where, we kind of got this groundswell of folks and leaders and respected farmers in our community. And then people said, well, I want to be a part of this too. And so, yeah, it was one of the most inspiring things I've been a part of.
Yeah, that's very commendable. Really appreciate the efforts. Now, consumers today are increasingly demanding transparency and responsible production.
Yeah.
How is sustainability influencing wine branding, consumer trust, and market competitiveness globally?
Yeah. Definitely consumers are, and not just in wine, but obviously across sort of anything they consume, things they use, products that they, use on their face, clothing, everything, I think more and more consumers care about knowing where that comes from and how it was curated and stewarded along the way. So for us, I mean, wine and grapes have been so proactive in that sustainability space and very, I want to say, early on in that. And so, wine's a very natural product. So and I think uniquely wine, unlike some products, the consumer products, really you put Sonoma County on the label. Often you see the actual farming name, the ranch, the family on the label. So the traceability back to saying, well, I know exactly where those grapes came from and be able to sort of see the practices that go into that. Unlike other consumer products and even other ag and farm products that you eat, other foods, you might go to the grocery store and you don't know exactly where that corn came from. You're in, or maybe where that apple came from, but in wine, you can see it on the bottle. And so I think with that becomes a huge responsibility and accountability that happens and able to build trust through that with the consumer. And then back in 2017, when we were well on our way into the sustainability commitment, we actually worked to create a label that wineries could put on their bottle that basically is like I laugh because now I'm going to age myself after you gave me such a nice introduction, but like a good housekeeping seal of approval. It's around almost like a little stamp that talks about, this wine was made with certified sustainable grapes. And so that created another kind of momentum as wineries said, we really want this, stamp of approval on our wine label. And I think at this point, we're well over 6 million, 7 million cases of wine from Sonoma County that carry that seal. So that's just an additional quick way for consumers to notice that. And so, and from a purchasing standpoint or consumer caring about it, I think it really, I don't know if we're going to convince someone who, really likes white wine to drink red wine instead because they see that sustainability label. But I do believe if someone's going in and they see that there's, they really want a Pinot Noir and a certain price point, and they see like one Pinot Noir has that kind of stamp of sustainability on it and the other one doesn't, we know that they'll be more loyal to that brand and probably have greater purchase intent for that. So I think that's where we see it. And a lot of research says consumers will pay more, but I don't think we always have the best data to really validate whether that's true or not. But we certainly know it's something emotionally that they care about, especially the younger generation.
I can guarantee after this, people and myself will buy more of Sonoma County wines than
I
otherwise.
Well, do you know what's so great about doing a region-wide effort is that as long as the bottle says Sonoma County on it, because not everyone's using the seal or didn't want to change their label, but if it says Sonoma County on it, with 99% of our vineyards certified sustainable, the grapes in the bottle are sustainable. So we don't have to say much more than that, and you can have a lot of confidence in Sonoma County on a label.
Lovely, excellent. And is this label also other vineyards from other parts of the world, can they apply for it?
So not in this case because it's actually Sonoma specific. So the criteria has to be that the grapes have to be grown in Sonoma County and grown sustainably in Sonoma County and have the certification to go with sort of the vineyards. But there are other, and I should say, there are amazing wine regions around the world that are focused on this. And so it's not just Sonoma County. I think we were unusual in that we did a region-wide, very like out there commitment, very vocal commitment to this, but there are grape growers doing really amazing sort of practices and around the world. So we love the sharing of data, but there are other great programs. Again, like New Zealand has a wonderful sustainability program, other regions through France and in Chile and down in Portugal. So I do think it is important though, and I always say like to look for locals. I think, you're here if you're in California, supporting California wine, supporting Sonoma County wine, supporting the farmers that are in our community is really important.
That's very inspiring again for a global collaboration, and you generously mentioned other organizations and regions as well. And now you earlier mentioned about the AI and sustainability.
Yeah.
Now, technology is rapidly transforming agriculture. What role does the data analytics, AI, or precision agricultural tools play in helping vineyards to reduce environmental impact while maintaining high quality of wine production?
Yeah, that's a great long question. Um, so one of the things we did after we sort of got everyone in the sustainability program is we sort of said, well, what's next? And for us is really thinking about, well, what is the farm of the future? And so we have a commitment and an initiative called the Farm of the Future. And part of that was understanding that it's expensive for farmers to try technology without knowing what the benefit is. So how do we remove some of those risks from that and provide more certainty in the outcome? So as part of our Farm of the Future initiative, we kind of have an open call, I would say. So if you're listening in or you watch this at some future time, we're really interested in working with companies. We consider Sonoma County a living lab, for lack of a better word, and to come here and we try to match technology, equipment, new ideas with what we call pilot farmers, where we actually pilot it. We sort of ask organizations to invest in us, our pilot farmers invest in them. so we can try something. We did this early on. Our first pilot partnership was with Ford Motor Company. When the F-150 Lightning came out, we were the first use case of it in agriculture. And so we did a whole Farm of the Future pilot program where we had three of our farmers' ranches using and piloting an F-150 Lightning electric vehicle, the charging stations, telematics, and really giving feedback to Ford Motor Company, Ford Pro on, what is the best use case for electric trucks in agriculture, specifically in vineyards. We also now have a pilot partnership with John Deere, Wilbur Ellis, which is a materials company, Agrology, which is a carbon sensor that you put in vineyards, a startup company. And we just opened in December a company called, and in partnership with Reservoir Farms, which is which I think was part of our conversation when we first
Yeah.
met, which is actually putting an ag tech robotics incubator literally here at our office where the Sonoma County Wine Growers is. There's a warehouse, and it's in the office where there will be startup companies very early on that are actually listening to grower problems and creating solutions for problems that exist, and versus starting by creating something and then kind of saying, okay, well, where's the match? It kind of flips the idea on its head. And so huge credit to Reservoir, Danny Bernstein, who is their founder, for having sort of this idea of really putting incubators on farms. And so you learn firsthand. So all of that to say, technology definitely is part of our future. More and more growers are able to use and analyze data to make better decisions, whether with the Ford Pro pilot was understanding the idling time that was happening in on the vineyard. So even with the owners, they're driving into a vineyard, they see something, they jump out. Maybe they forget to turn their truck off because they're just gonna do this one quick thing. Well, then all of a sudden they're talking to the foreman in the vineyard. All of a sudden they're walking down the hill and doing something else, and the truck's been idling for 30 minutes. Not good for wasting gas, not good for money, and also not good for our environment. So using data to like track those things to then to educate workforce on better practices and in changing behavior has been really, really important. And I think we're going to see so much more of that as we, again, use data. I was talking with a grower just a couple days ago, and they're literally tracking so the fluctuation literally in the vine trunk to understand the usage of water, how much is being, evaporated, when is the right time to irrigate, when's the right time to add fertilization, when's the right time to sort of mow or do tillage or conservation tillage. And so all of that data is helping do better farming and just have maybe pairing what has been boots on the ground and a generation transfer of knowledge with real data, and so saying those two things help make the best decision.
That's well, I must say that so we will see robots not only in the house, we will also see them in the vineyards.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think all of that, I mean, around goals of just increasing quality, thinking through viability and production, is a win for us, a win for consumers, a win for, our partners. And so something we care so much about, just being better stewards.
Excellent, excellent. Earlier, we mentioned about international
Yeah.
collaborations. So many regions from Europe to Australia are now discussing on climate resilient wine production, something that you guys have excelled. Now, how can international collaboration between the wine regions accelerate that transition towards sustainable viticulture? Like you guys have a stamp, if that could be internationalized and that could be a normal norm for other wine regions. So, how can
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about our stamp is, and other wine regions also have sort of a stamp that they use. I think there's something really nice to connect back to sort of what's happening locally, even if local means, again, New Zealand or around Europe. But we do a lot of, I would say, we host folks all the time that come in from, especially through, we have a great relationship with the California Wine Institute. They bring in groups of growers and winemakers and journalists, and sommeliers and wine buyers from around the world, a lot from outside the US. And often we have the opportunity to host them here in Sonoma County. We share practices. We have farmers sitting next to farmers from other regions talking about what success looks like, what's learning, what have they learned in the last 10 years that they've been on this process. And so And we're also a part of an organization called FIVS. It is really kind of represents a lot of the wine regions around the world and convenes twice a year in person and then throughout the year online. And there's a lot of practice sharing in that regard too. I also try to go out and with delegations and meet winemakers and growers in other regions so we can share what we're learning, but also get and understand what they're learning because great ideas come from all over the world. And so it's really important just to stay really connected on it. And clearly things like Zoom and be able to, meet internationally, literally through your computer, creates a whole new opportunity to really remove so many of those barriers that we might have had historically in learning from each other.
Yeah, that well, thank you for doing that. I think so
Yeah.
that's much needed in the times to come. Now,
Yeah.
looking ahead in the next decade, what innovations or policies do you believe will be most critical for ensuring the global wine industry that remains both economically viable and environmentally responsible? Especially, I would say also economically viable because sustainability is assumed to be very expensive. And considering the recent global geopolitical situations,
Yeah.
the price of gas and everything is just rising. So how do we ensure that it is viable?
Yeah, that is a tough one. I think there's a lot of pressure, our growers would say right now, and you named them. It's whether it's the rising cost of all the materials that they need and use, the rising cost of labor, what's happening with sort of, at least in California, ag overtime laws, just thinking through regulations and, it's more expensive to do everything. And it's not just in grape growing and farming, but certainly we feel it a lot because at the end of the day, especially for our grape growers, the challenge is that about 60% of our grape growers just grow grapes. So they're actually not connected to a wine label. They sell those grapes to wineries. And so at the end of the day, there's not as much control and sort of raising their price, the price that ends up to consumers, which is also a tough decision to make, but the end price to compensate for their rising prices. And a lot of our growers are in long-term contracts where the price maybe was set 5, 10 years ago, not considering all the rising costs that they're dealing with. So certainly it is an incredibly challenging time for our farmers. And, we say, especially like, I think so much of I would say regulatory situation, yes, happens globally, but I think the most impact that we see to our farmers is literally here in our backyard within our own county and certainly within our own state across California. So I think for people to really be champions and get educated on what agriculture looks like is probably step one. I was with our ag commissioner a couple of days ago, and he's like, we need more adult ag education really happening so people can learn firsthand what agriculture and farming really is and what it takes to be, a good steward and keep those lands. And I know for Sonoma County, our wine grapes, our growers have farmed so many different things here because we have such rich soils and different climates, whether it's apples or dairies and prunes and hops. But right now, with the cost of doing business, wine grapes is really one of the only crops we can afford to farm. So I think just for anyone out there listening that wants to support and wants to be a part of sort of helping us stay viable, it's around getting educated. I think so important to support local, and I say that very meaningfully local wherever you're at because I think that's taking care of the people in your own community first. So I was just presenting to a business group here, and I said, go make sure that our restaurants, if you're out at one of our local restaurants, ask them to carry Sonoma County wine. And then you have to do your job and actually support buying Sonoma County wine. And if you're at your store. And so I think, we all can play a part in helping our farmers succeed. I mean, farmers markets are an amazing thing here in California, certainly in Sonoma County. Great to go buy direct. So I think all of those things. But first and foremost, if you're not educated on what farming looks like and to challenge to do that. And I think our website's a great resource, sonomawinegroup.org, or any sort of education tools. Our ag commissioners, USDA, California Department of Food and Ag, all have so many great resources on it to be, I want to say, smarter about what happens in agriculture.
Maybe we could collaborate on educating the farmers or
Yes.
ag tech. We would
Yeah.
be very much happy to do that and see how it goes.
I love that. I would say we are so open to collaboration. I think that's going to be how we successfully move forward, no matter what the challenge is by really working together and learning from each other because we can't afford to do it on our own. We just can't. Like we got to sort of remove some of those risks and be able to take chances, innovate, try things, pilot things, and learn.
Thank you so very much, Carissa. It has been great learning for all of viewers and myself personally to know more about sustainability culture. And we look forward to future collaborations and genuinely working towards sustainable wineries.
Thank you. It's been such an honor to be here and chatting with you.
Thank you. It has